Hey guys, I'm here to review the album from Bring Me the Horizon called Sempiternal. So I've never really been a huge fan of Bring Me the Horizon. I never really saw the mass appeal. They weren't bad, but I never felt like they really did anything that was particularly memorable. Their first album, Count Your Blessings, was kind of generic deathcore for its time. It was kind of juvenile in nature. Their next album, Suicide Seasons, was a little bit better. It wasn't quite as harsh as their first album. It was a little bit more polished. It did show kind of signs of some sort of potential. The album before this, which kind of has a really long title, There Is a Hell, Believe Me, I've Seen It. There Is a Heaven, Let's Keep It a Secret. And I don't know, it really kind of feels like a rehash of the album before that, Suicide Season, and it feels like the songs where they were really trying to progress and sound different just fell a little bit flat. They kind of came off as a little bit whiny, like they were trying to be something more than what they actually were, and overall it was kind of just generic. Their sound really doesn't do anything for me in particular. I know they're a huge band, they do have this mass appeal, but I feel like it is because they have that kind of genericness to them that they do appeal to a broad range of metalcore fans, and they are kind of easy to get into in general for metalcore. They aren't as heavy or as harsh as some other bands. They do have some kind of poppy elements to some of their songs. However, with this album, that kind of really changes. I feel like they have really stepped up their game at this point, and they've actually impressed me with this album to the point where I'll go on a limb and call this a extremely good album and very talented album. Now, there's two unfortunate things for this album. It is a very drastic change in their sound. It's kind of going to polarize a lot of their fans. A lot of their fans are probably going to think this is the point where they kind of sold out, or that they were changing their sound and aren't this metalcore band that they were when they started. And I feel a lot of people are probably going to shy away from it for that reason. The other downside to this album is just one song in particular called Antivist, which I'll kind of talk about a little bit later. So the album starts with this song called Can You Feel My Heart? And right off the bat, we're off to a good start here. The lyrics are kind of structured in a predictable format, but it really is kind of a powerful song. It's deeper lyrics than anything they've really kind of written before. It's a more mature sound to them lyrically, and the use of electronics on this album is actually very well done and doesn't kind of overpower anything, but yet it has its own style to it. In this opening track, you get lines like, I can't drown my demons, they know how to swim, and it's kind of a fairly deep line. And then as it progresses on, we get songs like Sleepwalking, which are definitely a more progressive song for this band, and you have the electronics in there, you have the bass line in there, and you know, everything in this song is basically what I feel is good about this album, and it is a progression for the band. It doesn't sound like every other generic metalcore band out there, and it really sounds like Ollie Sykes, the vocalist, has kind of really improved his sound, particularly with the soft vocals that he has versus his screams, which we're used to. There's a few songs on here that are definitely classic Bring Me the Horizon. Songs like House of Wolves is kind of something more like you would expect from them. Then you have the song Empire, Let Them Sing, which is still that kind of classic Bring Me the Horizon style sound, that kind of heaviness, except it's also more progressive version of that sound. It has some, again, electronic work on here that just goes with it and creates this atmosphere and just works so well on that particular track. The first single they released, Shadow Moses, is kind of a blend of their new progressive style and their old style as well, similar to Empire. It's definitely got that heaviness to it and that screaming and that kind of pulsing drum beat, but at the same time it's still kind of a more mature sound to that we're not used to from the band. Now, my favorite song on this album really has to be the song And the Snakes Start to Sing. I feel this is kind of something we've never heard from this band before. It's a huge departure from their previous sound, and it almost feels like it's coming from an entirely different band. it doesn't feel like Bring Me the Horizon if you've listened to them in the past. You know, it kind of, it's more, it's a softer sound. It sounds almost like something we get from Under Oath. It's got that more post-hardcore sound to it than just generic metalcore sound. It shows a lot of talent. Again, particularly in the vocals, we've seen a huge improvement for Ollie Sykes, and this is a song where it really comes to fruition here. You know, if I had to choose one song off this album, that would definitely be the song that I choose. And that said, that being the best song on here, this is where we get to the song Antivist. This is just really a bad song. It's not even that reminiscent of things we've heard from in the past. I mean, it kind of is, but it's just not a good song, particularly lyrically. I mean, musically, there's nothing that really stands out about it. It's a fairly generic hardcore metalcore track, but then you have lyrics like middle fingers up if you don't give a fuck, and it's just why it feels so juvenile and just so immature after this, all these songs that we've gotten that have shown this progression from this band, and we get this song and it feels like such a step backwards for the band. And the unfortunate part about it is this is probably a song where a lot of, I would say, not sound cynical, but probably younger fans are going to kind of feel attracted to. You know, it is something that it's kind of chanty. It's something I could really feel them playing at shows and people kind of going along with, but it's just, it feels like such a step back for a band that shows that they really can expand themselves. So this album in general is a extreme departure from what we've heard. We kind of started to hear this progression with their last album, but it really kind of comes full force here. There's songs that are really, like I said, reminiscent of bands like Under Oath, who really kind of were the best of the post-hardcore genre and the metalcore genre. They really were some of the more experimental bands that were out there, and we're starting to get that experimentation from Bring Me the Horizon, and it works for them. It's something that comes naturally to them. It doesn't feel like they're trying to stay stuck in their generic metalcore sound that they had and that they've kind of developed over time. And it's nice to see them kind of branching out and developing new sounds and bringing new elements into their songs here. So this album, I would say, is a huge improvement over anything that we've heard from the band. And the first time I'd really say that they go beyond the genericness that they've kind of been stuck in the past, and we actually get a good album from them. That said, fans of the band that are looking for albums like Suicide Season or Count Your Blessings really aren't going to be at home here. It's not quite as heavy of that. I mean, it's still reminiscent of those albums, but it kind of goes beyond them in a way that I think will turn off some older fans of this band. I mean, if you never really listened to Bring Me the Horizon before, if you've kind of been turned off by their fan base or the fact that they are kind of labeled and kind of pushed out as this generic metalcore band, and usually when people talk about the poppy side of metalcore, not poppy as in pop music, but the more popular media-friendly bands, usually they'll bring up Bring Me the Horizon as one of them, and I think you should really give this album a chance because it does break out of that kind of rut that they were in.